Hello, everybody. My name is Haley Hoffman, and I am a graduate student at the University of Kentucky. Today I'm going to be talking to you about ways to use one of my favorite apps, Twitter, in the classroom. So first we'll have a brief overview of what Twitter is, as well as an overview of Twitter language, and then we'll talk about a few uses for Twitter in the classroom before looking at how to set up and use a Twitter account, and then tips for using Twitter in the classroom in the future. So first, what is Twitter? Twitter is a social media platform where users can share 240 character tweets about their life, school, work, politics, etc. It was launched in 2006 and it now sees more than 340 million tweets per day and boasts over 330 million active users, which include celebrities, authors, politicians, scientists, scholars, and just everyday people. Particularly for the classroom, Taylor and Weigel in their 2016 study on Twitter in the classroom note that it is free, it's faster to set up than Facebook, and it's unlimited in terms of the number of students who can participate. They talk about in their study how Twitter is a quote light and quick way to connect students together, or even to connect students with faculty, as opposed to other content heavy things like Facebook, where students would have to wade through a lot of content to get at the heart of a discussion. Looking at the uses of Twitter, there are a few different things that we need to understand before we talk about how to use Twitter in the classroom, which is Twitter language. So when we talk about somebody's handle, we're saying that somebody's username. For my own personal Twitter account, it is at Hey Hoffman. It's just usually a username that is related to your name or something else that is related to your identity. If you want to mention somebody on Twitter, so to tag them in a tweet, you would use the @ symbol followed by their handle to tag them in your tweet. You could also send somebody a direct message, which is a private message between users, and you can only DM with someone who follows you. So if I wanted to DM, say, J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, on Twitter, I would not be able to do that because I follow her, but she does not follow me. So somebody has to be following me in order for me to direct message them. Perhaps one of the most famous ones by terms of Twitter language is retweet, denoted as RT on Twitter, which is sharing somebody's tweet or forwarding it to your own account. You can either retweet outright, which is just a direct copy of that message onto your account, or you can quote the tweet and add something new to it and add to the discussion. When we're talking about the feed, we're talking about the stream of tweets that appear on the dashboard or your homepage when you first log into the website, and there will aggregate tweets that you are interested in, or tweets from people you follow, or sometimes even things that are related to hashtags that you like. So hashtags denote a topic of conversation, and they're used to track tweets on the same subject. They're usually put on the same page as moments, which are relatively new to Twitter, and they aggregate the best and most popular tweets on a subject. So talking about different things in the news or TV shows, and they will promote them on their trending page, which is usually under their either moments button on the computer or on the search screen on the iPhone app. If we are talking about using Twitter in the classroom, we'll want to just hit these topics very briefly. So providing depth to classroom discussions, or using Twitter as a clicker in the classroom, using it to update office hours, or connecting professionals with students. The first one is classroom discussions. Parcha in 2014 reported that he used Twitter in the classroom to add to classroom content and discussions. So his students were in the basic course in the communication department, and they were learning how to analyze speeches and how to become better public speakers. So he would have students critique speeches that he would either post on his Twitter account or some that would just pop up on their own on Twitter, and students would critique those speeches and respond to them via the class hashtag. So he was able to actually go in and see what students were responding where and then award them points accordingly. He did all of this underneath communication accommodation theory because he believed that Twitter had the potential to cause convergent communication, so bringing groups together, particularly looking at students and faculty. He knew that Twitter was a platform that his students were using, and so decided to take advantage of it in the classroom, and especially because it was relatively easy to track with the hashtag, everything turned out just fine for their class. We've also got the idea of clickers in the classroom. So Paul and Aniti in 2012 used Twitter to post questions and track student responses via the hashtag in real time. So the professor would post a question on one screen, either from the computer or on their own personal Twitter account, and then have students respond on the other screen. It would aggregate what they were posting in the hashtag and would update in real time for them to view in class. They found that it was easier to understand what students were thinking when they answered questions. When you typically answer with a clicker, you either respond yes or no, or A, B, C, D. And using 140 character tweets allowed them to sort of see the expansion of their students' thought process and understand where those answers were coming from, whether they were right or wrong. Twitter can also very simply just be used to update office hours. Professors can update their location, their office hours, all of these things to encourage real-time student interaction. So getting beyond the computer and coming together to interact in the real world. The picture you'll see there on the right is from the Twitter account of one of my professors from undergrad, and she did give me permission to use this in my presentation today. She uses the Twitter account @thedailyjamie, which is her handle, to update where she is during the day, as well as to post her class schedule so that students know that they can come visit her during her office hours, or even just stop by and say hello. So the one that you'll see there from the February 14th on the bottom says that she's in her office until 1:30 that day and is encouraging students to come say hello to her in her office. So again, encouraging real-time interactions amongst students and faculty. And then finally, we have connecting professionals and students, and that typically takes place via hashtags. So the Taylor and Weigel study in 2016 that I mentioned earlier used the hashtag SciStuChat to connect students and scientists on a weekly basis. And that hashtag is actually still used today by numerous high school and college classrooms around the world. Scientists will usually post in there and say, "Hi, my name is Haley, I work at the University of Kentucky, and here's what I'm studying." And then the students will get to interact with them and ask questions about how they came to get involved in that field or even what research they're conducting at the time. Messner in 2009 used Twitter to connect her 5th grade students with authors. So the 5th graders did not have their own Twitter accounts, but Messner would use her own to tweet their questions to authors as they were studying books. So they used the hashtag YesChat to discuss the book Operation Yes with the author. It was their class read aloud, and so every student had questions that they had to prepare for her to ask the author during that chat. And then she also tweeted her students 140 character blurbs that they wrote over their Christmas break for the book When You Reach Me, so that when students came back from Christmas break, they were able to hand in their blurbs, and then Messner would share them on her Twitter account, and it even garnered the attention of the author. She retweeted a few and responded to a few and thanked Messner for connecting her students with the author and for sharing those great blurbs. What Messner points out in her article is that using Twitter can help expand her students' personal learning networks. So even at a young age, it helps connect students with people who will help them learn new things. Expanding that learning network to expand those interactions and expand that knowledge base just simply by using Twitter. So now I'd like to show you all how to use Twitter. Should pop up for me here in just a minute. Yep, there we go. So first I will want to put in either my phone or email address. This is the home page on Twitter. So I'm going to enter my UK email address and then enter a password there. Looks like both of those will work. So then we hit get started and then I'll enter my full name there. You can choose to personalize Twitter based on the things that you've looked at previously on the web. I'm going to choose not to do that and hit sign up. It'll ask you if you want to enter your phone number. It'll be easier to log in on the actual app on the phone, but since we're using it on the computer right now, I'm going to skip that step. And then now it'll ask me to choose a username. So I'm going to do one. Looks like that one's already taken. Let's add T onto the end of it from that email address. Yep, looks like that'll work. And that'll be my handle. So if somebody wants to tag me in a tweet, it'll be @Haley_Hoffman2. The next page they'll take you to is a page in which they ask you to select a few topics of interest so that they can tell you about Twitter accounts you should follow and get you started on Twitter. So for purposes of this class, I'll choose, let's say, nonprofits, I'll choose science, of course choose technology, arts and culture, get some literature and some space news in there. And it's setting up Twitter for us. All right. So these are steps that'll take you through essentially what we just talked about in the presentation, so I will not walk you through them today. And on your profile, you can click this button and go to profile. You can update your header image as well as your profile photo. Again, I won't do that just for purposes of time. And then if I wanted to, let's just check up on one of the hashtags we talked about during the presentation. So let's do SciStuChat. So it looks like that's the name of an actual Twitter account, and then it asks you if you want to look for the hashtag. So it looks like those are people who interact on that chat. Let's see if we can get some of the tweets to pop up on there. Yeah, there we go. So we've got some people thanking each other for interacting on SciStuChat. We've even got some scientists that are interacting on there in the hashtag. There we go. Now, of course, my Twitter account looks a little bland right now, but there are ways that you can customize your Twitter account, add your website, add a bio, all sorts of things. These are tips from Kruger, Ross, Waters, and Farwell on their chapter from my book on using social media in the classroom. They recommend to just be sensitive to privacy issues, so knowing that not all students will want to share things as publicly as they do on Twitter, making your expectations clear, and that includes creating a hashtag that is relevant to the class so that you can easily track responses, and then of course serving as a Twitter role model for your students and showing them how to interact professionally and appropriately on Twitter. And then here are my references for you all. Thank you so much, and have a great day.